Now we be the voice that got talk true. For the land we done they so for silence too.
Hello my people, now welcome once again for this better Obonge edition of Voices of Vigilance. It don't happen again in Nigeria. Now one day, one story. Nigerian police don't block Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan from entering the National Assembly to start her work as the court don't allow her make she start. Plenty active voices and active Nigeria will follow and they beg. No be yesterday when Nigerian people they protest on behalf of the police, make government improve their condition. Today, police don't join the evil politicians to prevent someone wey court don't permit make she resume her work. My people, lawmakers don't become lawbreakers. Make I not talk too much. Make I leave on and make una watch this interesting video wey happen for National Assembly today.
A married woman, your ex says she's wearing transparent clothes. How can you sexually harass a woman? You said because you're not in a night club. That's no ethical ground to the president. Before the committee went, he said
short braid. She's always tying red.
You are dealing with us. They must know that women's rights in Nigeria are under attack. Are you with them? Women's rights in Nigeria are under attack. We have only 4 women senators. One of them is being persecuted, suspended for 6 months. Not to appeal the ruling. Akpabio decided to appeal the ruling by himself. And on behalf of the Senate, illegality gives them to shame on every opposition politician and lawmaker inside that chamber.
They are looking to stop us.
Nonsense.
Yes, what type of that? I read the phone.
They don't want you.
From my hand, I think I just.
Also watching live pictures from the entrance of the National Assembly. We could see clearly from about 10 minutes ago up until now, Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan attempting to get back into the National Assembly to resume her duty. She faced barriers, human barriers, and now she's facing a physical barrier in form of a gate. She was shown huge support by the likes of Aisha Yesufu, who is an activist. And in spite of Aisha's passionate speech and appeal to the sergeants who were present, physically hindering Senator Natasha from entering, they fell on deaf ears, and now she's met with a gate. And one thing that's important to note is that these security personnel have refused to disclose under whose instructions they're acting on. Right now, we're still seeing those in support of Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan resuming her duties in a confrontation with those that are manning the gate. And in case you're wondering, or you might not be familiar with how things started, you recall that in March of 2025, about 6 months ago, the senator in question, that Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan, was suspended following allegations of sexual harassment she made against Senate President Godswill Akpabio. The suspension stemmed from a heated exchange over seating arrangements that escalated into serious accusations. She was also accused of making defamatory remarks linking Akpabio to organ harvesting allegations, and her suspension effectively left Kogi Central constituents without senatorial representation for months. Now, with this resistance, there are a lot of questions that might be posed. And Kachi, I'm sure you might also have some, light to shed on this. First of all, as if we take off our hats, okay, we'll come back to that thought. But for now, our correspondent is trying to give the mic to, or have the senator speak to us and other members of the press. Let's listen in.
She's saying so.
Yeah, no, just put yourself together before I speak, but I just want to make a call. Femi?
she will
Just
need
put
to back
yourselves
the
together.
case.
Yeah, no, I'll face here. Well, yeah, but let me. I want to make a call.
Rise, you are
I
rise.
need to make a call first. I want to speak to my husband first.
Channels.
Let it reflect inside.
Bemi, are you on the line?
We'll address the question. Just disclosed that she'd like to speak with her husband first, who has shown support for her from the start of this situation. And now that entry has been denied, there are lots of questions or scenarios that could be raised. It creates a constitutional crisis with competing claims of authority. It could also raise questions about contempt of court and rule of law. It could trigger broader institutional confrontation between branches, and it could also demonstrate legislative defiance of judicial oversight. And I think that last point is very crucial, Tachi.
I think it's important in as much as just this entire site is not very it's not a very good site. It isn't, but we do need to face the fact here. And the fact is that in as much as the people of Kogi Central do deserve representation, this is still an ongoing case in the High Court with regards to the case being moved forward to the appeals right now. And that's where it stands. The judge did not mandate the Senate to recall Senator Natasha. And as much as that may not be the most favorable thing to hear, it's important that we all understand what the law says about this. The judge said it in passing as a part of her judgment. This is excessive. 6 months without representation is not the best way forward. And that was an obitter. So Senator Natasha waking up this morning and going to the National Assembly, I think first of all, this could have gone many ways. We're just, we're reading off the effects of the NSAS protest and the effect of what that did. That day where it was clearly stated, there was everyone had to stay put. But of course, we have to, obviously there are a lot of people who felt the need to still come out in their numbers and insist that certain things be fought for. And we all saw how the situation played out when there was confrontation between both sides, and it just ended horribly. This could have ended in many ways, aside from being peaceful. We saw the moment where it seemed as though officials from the National Assembly were almost ready to push her back. If she didn't come with people to defend her, she would have been pushed. And then it becomes another issue of assault, physically assaulting. Okay, I believe she's about to speak. Yes, that's what to say.
How far more can you go on this?
In simple terms, it's not about beating the first and second gates and barricade. It's about me and a duly elected senator walking into the chambers to resume my constituted duties as I was elected and mandated by the good people of Kogi Central and INEC. And it's unfortunate that we got in today, which is the 22nd of July 2025, having duly notified the Senate through 2 letters that I would be resuming functions today. As a matter of fact, I'm disappointed on 2 grounds. One is the number of armed policemen that we met outside, all well-kitted with guns, charged at a female senator who is unarmed with her people here, patriotic Nigerians. And the second thing is the fact that the Senate, under the leadership of Godswill Akpabio, have decided to become lawbreakers and by denying me entrance into the chambers to resume my duty. There's been some conversations in the media by his own team, trying to twist the narrative that the judge did not order my reinstatement, and I'd like to clarify that. You see, pursuant to Section 318 of the 1999 Constitution, it is very clear that decisions of a court comes in 5 ways. It could be a judicial decree, it could be a sentence, it could be an order, it could be a conviction, and it could be a recommendation. So an order is just one of the 5 decisions that a judge can pronounce over any case. And mine tilts towards a recommendation. Now, you would think that a recommendation is a voluntary. That means the Senate has either they comply or they have the right not to comply. But I'd like to clarify that. Again, if you go further to the to section 287, subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution, again, it actually specifies in clear terms that decisions, that's any of these 5 decisions of any of the possible on every authority. So what that means in simple terms, whether they mention that the Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court made an order or made a sentence or made a judicial decree or a recommendation, whatever, however they want to interpret the literal words, interpretation of the words, it is still a decision of a court and it is still binding on the National Assembly. The second issue that I have seen withering around the media is that the Senate appealed the judgment. And I mentioned it, I'm saying it clearly. Hamza, can you please give me, where's Hamza? Let me have that page, please. Let me have the appeal. Let me show them the appeal. Now, this is the appeal that was initiated last week against Justice Binta Nyako's judgment. It is clear that it is not the National Assembly, neither it is the Senate. It's Akpabio himself. Read it. The president of the Senate, he is the only appellant. The National Assembly has not appealed that judgment. The Senate has not appealed the judgment. The Committee on Ethics has not, that suspended me wrongly, has not appealed the judgment. As a matter of fact, Senator Akpabio joined the clerk of the National Assembly, the entire Senate, and the chairman Committee on Ethics as joint respondents to the case. That means Akpabio has taken the National Assembly and the Senate and the clerk and the committee to court as well. Do you understand? That must be clarified. So there is no reason whatsoever, contrary to the publications I read yesterday, that I should not resume today because the Senate has appealed my suspension. Senate did not. No, what I appealed is the contempt, and that is separate. The judgment came in 2 parts. One was to address the contempt, which is based on the satirical letter or the satirical apology letter which I made on Facebook, which the judge thought it wise in her own stride that amounts to contempt. But I'm saying clearly that does not amount to contempt of her court, because before Justice Binta Nyako was not the matter of sexual harassment, but the matter of suspension. And what I would say clearly, what I would say clearly here is me appealing the contempt does not in any way invalidate the decision of the court that mentions me resuming. And I'll say this again, in as much as the judgment, Justice Binta Nyako's judgment was the most watery of all the suspension judgments we've had, taking into consideration Senator Aline Dume's and Senator Omar Gege's suspension. But there is one particular portion of her decision which I want us to hinge upon, where she mentioned that my suspension is actually excessive and that me being suspended for 6 months actually will prevent my ability to carry out my constitutional functions as stipulated in Section 63 of the 1990 Constitution. Now, what does Section 63 of the 1999 Constitution means? That every senator in this and every parliamentarian is to attend a sitting not less than 181 days per year to carry out my constituted functions. And what are the constitutional functions of a senator? One, legislative, which I'll do in there. Second is oversight of the executive. And third is representative of my people. So that means what Justice Binta Nyako told the National Assembly is that not only is my judgment excessive, but it will also deprive me of carrying out my constituted of which I was elected according to the Nigerian Constitution. That is Section 63. So that means my suspension is illegal. If you look at that, because anything that contravenes the Nigerian Constitution is illegal, and the National Assembly cannot be greater than the Constitution. They're now coming down again based on the appeal. Akpabio himself cannot be greater than the courts, cannot be greater than the Constitution. And I want Nigerians to know that the office of the Senate President, Akpabio himself, does not give me my legitimacy as a senator. The fact that he has gone on appeal himself does not invalidate the decision of Justice Bienten Nyako and does not stop me from being a senator. I got my legitimacy as a senator today from the people of Kogi Central who voted me at the February 2023 election. So, me being the... well... The most important thing is I am proving to the good people of Kogi Central and Nigerians at large, especially the women who have continuously written to me that they have the right courage in my actions so far. Now, the fact that I've been denied entrance is a statement being made. Our narratives are being shaped, history is being formed and shaped, and policies, again, all of this work together through intentional actions like we have done today. It's on record that the National Assembly under Akpabio has decided to be in contempt of the court's decisions. And it's quite ironic because they are actually lawmakers. So that puts to question how far as democracy in this day and age. So, however, if we decide to turn our backs and go home, we are not ignorant of the fact that the National Assembly is most likely going to go into recess tomorrow for 2 months, and they would resume pretty much in the last week of September. And like you rightly said, that means they would have pretty much served the earlier 6 months suspension. I'm saying that because as of now, I'm no more suspended. And there's something very important I would like to say. Even the suspension ab initio was fraudulent because the document that recommended my suspension was not attested to by the senators, the members of the committee. It was just an attendance sheet that was photocopied as their signatures. And if we are to go through that, that means ab initio from the onset, the suspension is wrong because the documents, the recommendation was faulty. So that's having mentioned that. Going forward, I'm going to have a meeting with my legal team, and then most likely they will have to probably proceed to the appellate court to seek interpretations of what has just happened. Abiding citizens, everyone here who has accompanied me, you can see no one is unruly, even though some have vehemently decided to express their dissatisfaction with the system. I am a law-abiding citizen, and it is very important I do mention, and Nigerians should know that even though we do have 2 federal government criminal cases against me, they are on criminal defamation simply because I spoke up the threat to life. And everybody has a right to speak up on their threat to life. And Nigerians should know that I am not facing charges of corruption, I'm not facing charges of embezzlement, I'm not facing charges of drug abuse, and neither am I facing charges of murder. And it's ironic that the people who are actually testifying as witnesses in the 2 federal government cases have cases at EFCC, have files at EFCC on record that they have actually embezzled state funds running into billions. So it's really, let me say this, it's very important I do mention the flip of our judicial system, the flip of how institutions being utilized to oppress people who are innocent. If this is a country that if Nigeria works, if our institutions are truly independent and strengthened, then there's no reason why some of these fellows who sit there as senators should even be in the Senate in the first place, should actually be behind bars, and I'm saying that. And I do pray and hope that it is by my actions today and by voices of Nigerians all around, whether in the country or in diaspora, that we speak up and ensure that this injustice that is being meted against me, this persecution meted against me will not stand, so that their daughters will not suffer, so that their wives will not suffer simply because they spoke up against sexual harassment. And I'm sorry I have to mention this, because you see, people have wondered, Natasha, how come there's so much hate? How come you were suspended for 6 months? Just the day after you tendered your petition on sexual harassment, you were suspended. And then there was the fraudulent recall. We all saw how we survived the recall. And then there's been a whole lot of attacks against me, which by the grace of God I've survived. And whenever people ask me, Natasha, why is there so much hate from the Senate President against you? Why is it that institutions have turned against you, even though, by and large, you are pretty much one of the fairest senators or politicians in Nigeria? And I tell them, this is just an iceberg of what I have had to suffer and endure in the Senate under Akpabio's leadership for the last 1 year. Many of you thought that my speech on that floor, when I told him I was not afraid of him, and I did mention, I said, if you make me speak to the media on what I have had to endure in your hands, you know, it would go pretty. And that's to let Nigerians know that that outburst I had on the floor was just a compilation of so many wrongs that Akpabio has meted against me. And I will say this, pretty much it's a shame that we have had so many good Senate presidents. We've had Chuba Akpadibo of blessed memory. We've had Senator David Mark. We've had Bukola Saraki. We've even had Lawal, who is a senator right now. I think this pretty much is the worst assembly Nigeria has ever had. And I hope we will not have to suffer this anymore, because it tells a lot on the individual. And I've said this before and I'm saying it again. The Senate President Godswill Akpabio, as if it's the third-term governor of Akwa Ibom. Many senators are afraid. You've all seen what happened. You are not allowed to speak. When you try to speak or air your views on certain issues that are critical, you get shut down if it does not conform with what he wants. So far, I've not been given any official reason. I've only read on the papers yesterday that I should not resume today because the Senate has appealed, and that is why I presented to you that the Senate has not appealed the judgment. It is Akpabio himself. He is abusing power by willing the entire institutions to fight me. It's a personal vendetta that Akpabio is unleashing. Wrong, because you can't have his own senatorial district deprive the Kogi Central of representation. There is just no reason why these gates should not be open. But by and large, considering the fact that the Senate is vacating tomorrow, whenever they deem it fit to resume, we would resume as well. So what matters most is all the pressures and all the calls of me apologizing for no wrong that I did. I have refused to do that. So if it means staying the entire 6 months for an unjust suspension, which I'm saying, repeating again, has been quashed by the courts, so be it. I have pretty much been busy with my constituents on the brighter side. You've all seen, we've been carrying out a lot of projects in the past few months. And that is true to my nature, because I am a technocrat. I'm a lawyer. I'm an oil and gas expert. My formative year in my career were in the oil and gas industry. So I got into politics because I wanted to create a different mark for other people like me who wants to venture into politics. I also got into politics because I want to intentionally raise the standard of leadership. It's enough for us in Africa to sit down and admire leaders or politicians from other smaller African countries, not talk of the European world and the other Western world. So I hope that with this journey so far, however it goes, people should muster strength from me, and I hope that 2027 we will have more courageous, younger, educated, intentional leaders that will be elected into office, so that together we can change the narrative of Nigeria. And thank you so much for your love and support, Nigerians. I see you, I feel you. God bless.
Thank you so much. And they're stopping the serving senator from going in after the court has said she can. And we have a situation whereby the Senate President, Senator Akpabio, Godswill Akpabio, has appealed a case, not the Senate. This is a matter between Natasha and the Senate. And what we have is Akpabio taking on the powers of the Senate, because before him to appeal, he needs to have a resolution within the Senate, and he hasn't done that. That is breaking the law in everything. We're here, the gates have been closed. We have to walk all the way in. They refuse to allow our cars in. They refuse to allow a senator that was voted in by the people into the office. Who does that? And we have the Nigerian police, as shameless as ever. They are being a willing tool of oppression. Yesterday we saw them, some of their colleagues who have retired, some of them barely 2 years ago, protesting because of the wages they are getting, the pension they are getting is not enough for them. And you have today, they are being brought in to support the injustice that is happening in Nigeria.
I thought the Senate also passed some message across to say that she shouldn't come now. She should follow due process.
What is the due process? Akpabio is the due process? There's no due process. At what time did they sit and come to that resolution? At what time was there an appeal? That is why Senator Akpabio did the appeal and put the Senate as responded, and also Natasha. Who does that? You say the Senate. It's not the Senate. They are all first among equals. So what is going on in Nigeria? This should concern every one of us. This injustice that Natasha said cannot be sustained, and we cannot continue to have all of this, going on. This is rascality at its highest order. The people who in 2014 scaled this wall are the people now stopping the war. closing the wall and not allowing anybody to pass through that fence. What does that say about our country? We are losing our country. There is capture everywhere, legislative capture, state capture, judiciary has been captured. And why does the judiciary even allow itself to be used in the manner that it's always being used?
Thank you so very much. Thank you very much. Thank you so very much. So that is how.
Now we be the